You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
We have a big book here. The Blood Hunt event is kind of over. The worst is you get through this last issue and then it tells you, no, we still have like 7 issues left.
Not me.
Like, who's going to be reading those?
No.
The idea that you end this and then it's telling you, oh, by the way, you know what happens when it ends. But go and read these. The only one that I think I would really possibly read is a Doctor Strange one. But even then, by the end of this, I'm so angry at half the things. Even then, you know that I'm angry when half the things that I said, or actually all the things that I predicted, all came true.
Yeah, pretty much.
I usually like being right, but this is not.
It doesn't even matter if you're right or not.
It doesn't. None of this matters. All this was, and I'll just tell you before we get into even the credits, this Blood Hunt event, 60 plus issues, was only around to set up a couple books coming later. That's it. There's a lot of nonsense. And to me, an event shouldn't ruin more than it gives. And to me, it ruins a bunch of things. I mean, there's some weird stuff going on with, say, Dracula and the Vampire's Blade, the idea of Dr. Doom. I just don't get it. And I said on this podcast, way back before this started, I made the deal of saying, this is my do or die deal. I keep being told that Jed MacKay's great. He's awesome. And I said, listen, now he has elevated himself enough to get the big summer event. This will be either he'll show me that everybody's right and that he is great, or he's going to show me that what I think is he's a little above average with it's just the lay of the land. A lot of the writers nowadays stink. He doesn't stink. That's the elevation that he gets. He's better than stink. And this event.
Yeah, what it tells me that he has control over too many characters and too many books.
Yeah, and that's the deal. Everybody loves his Moon Knight. It's funny. You get the diminishing returns as you go down the chart. Uh-huh. You're like, everybody loves his Moon Knight. Then you're like, oh, what do you think about his Doctor Strange? Oh, that's okay. Oh, what do you think of his Avengers? You keep going. Everything's going down. It's like a graft. It's not the type of graft you want.
Black
right?
Cat, please. Can we go back to the beginning?
That's what I like the most of. But in this whole deal, like this Blood Hunt, I don't hear anybody talking about it. I don't see anybody excited about it. And it's just nothing, especially the main book. Now, here's the weird thing. The main book, I don't think has been good at all. You have a bunch of characters, including Varney, who is the main villain who has pretty much possessed Blade. Nobody knows anything about him. You have to actually do extra work to go find that out. Then you end up having the Blood Coven, who are the kind of right-hand men and women here of the big deal. Nobody knows anything about them, and I really don't think anybody can even name them before they look at the chart here with the characters. So what did you do? I mean, this whole thing, and yet usually you could say, well, the main book stunk, but the tie-ins, they really did. But the tie-ins, all of them pretty much meant nothing. I like the Wolverine tie-in the most. It had nothing to do with anything.
You like it because it doesn't have to do with it. Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I liked it because it was a standalone story. It had a beginning, middle, and end.
The Doctor Strange ones are okay, I guess.
Yeah,
but they're
I'm telling you, we had a whole issue where it was Victor trying to get into the body of Doctor Strange while Bats turned into a dog god. I mean, that was nonsense.
Avengers had its moments, but
yeah, I liked Avengers as well.
Yeah, that was
and that's Jed MacKay.
Yeah.
So but that felt like the type of book that I don't like when he tries to get fancy. That's why I don't like the Avengers, which to me is almost unreadable.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm not reading. When it goes back after this, I'm not reading it. I'm skipping it.
I like the fun Jed MacKay,
the fun
not
one,
the Jed MacKay is like, I'm gonna try to wow people. I think that's not his role. That's not his lane.
You're right. He's better when he's doing the funnier stuff.
He's just having fun. The Black Cat stuff was really good, and he ends up even that.
Don't take yourself too seriously.
That was kind of a family. It worked out. But this is just too much. I think that he bit off too much than he could chew, or more than he could chew, and I don't think he's writing books that really hit his, deal. Well, people love his Moon Knight. Moon Knight's back. I mean, we got that. That's the other thing. Before I go in, we're already going off the rails. But the idea that people are like, oh man, I don't know why Marvel ended up doing that with Mark Spector and he ended up dying. This seems to be all the evil plan of Jed MacKay. He's the one in control of both things. He ended up killing Mark Spector to only bring him back in the event to try to make it a big thing. That's all he did. That's bullshit.
Wasn't big at all.
No. Most people didn't even know what was happening because as it played out on the page, it just was very lackluster. But seriously, he did something that people hated to then bring it back in his event to make it a big thing, and it wasn't. So it's just nonsense. This is Blood Hunt number 5, written by Jed McKay, art by Pepe Larraz, colors by Marty Garcia and Fer Fuentes Sujo, and letters by VC's Corey Petit. I usually don't like some of these recaps. They're too darn long, but I'm gonna read this just to get annoyed. Led by Blade, a group of vampires used the dark force to blot out the sun, creating an eternal night and unleashing violence upon the world. Were they all vampires at that point? Blade and the Blood Coven, a group of superpowered vampires, also launched a devastating attack on the Avengers. Blade then dropped the ancient Atlantean temple of the first blasphemy upon Central Park and revealed that he is possessed by Varney, the first vampire. Varney merged with the Dark Force, amplifying his power. Just stopping there. We don't know anything about the Blood Coven. The Temple of First Blasphemy just landed in New York City, never was told anything about it. And Varney, unless you go back and read some things before, nothing said.
Yeah, from like the 70s.
Like already in this, you're mentioning the big things, and they were rarely, or if at all,
who names a
explained.
temple of the first blasphemy? What kind of name is that?
Know, some jerks, I guess. Here we are. There you go. And really the whole play, Varney being the first vampire, we've said from the beginning, if you kill Varney, then it goes down the line. You seem to cure the things, but maybe. Varney hunted for Blade's teenage daughter, Brielle Brooks, who has the potential to strike him down. So she doesn't. Brielle aligned herself with both Dracula and the vampirized Spider-Man, who they don't say, but is Miles. Doctor Strange trapped in astral form, and Clea traveled to Latveria to seek Dr. Doom's mystical help in banishing the Dark Force. Remember the idea that Doctor Strange got bitten by Blade and then ended up becoming a vampire, then just to become his astral form. So it really didn't affect him.
He also got ripped in half by Blade, too.
Yeah, and that stupid leg guy. So, yeah. So they end up going there, the Sorcerer Supreme. It's Strange abdicated that's the thing. Just look at this recap. It says, only if Strange abdicated the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme to Dr. Well, we're going to get that. Meanwhile, Tigra and Hunter's Moon freed Khonshu, god of the moon, for his prison in Asgard. Moon Knight's coming to battle. The vampires reunited and recovered. The Avengers confronted Varney and the Blood Coven at the temple for the final battle. It's been back and forth. The Avengers get destroyed, then the Blood Coven gets destroyed. Then the Avengers get... This has been a mess. It's written by... I already said that. I'm telling you, I'm out of it now. We end up where we start this, where you end up having Clea yelling at Dr. Doom, you set this up. You're the one who wanted this. But no, it's what it is. You end up where Steven can't do anything. He's a stupid astral projection, and Dr. Doom knows what it takes to stop it, but I don't know. He's just not doing it until he gets that mantle, and he's going to get it. And Dr. Strange just says to him, please promise that you'll get it. Give it back to me after you save the world. And there's the small print. Dr. Strange should know better than to leave small print for nonsense like this. So you end up where that's going on. Then we go to Central Park, New York, and you just have the Avengers fighting the Blood Coven. But again, I want to know anybody who tells me, like, what is the story with Cruel or Unusual or Damascene or any of them? They're just randos still, and they're fighting, and they're never going to be anything but randos. They're just fighting back and forth, and really all that comes from this whole fight is Thor needs Mjolnir, but when he gets it, he doesn't really use anything with it. They end up asking, Scarlet Witch, cast the spell to get rid of the vampires. She says, I don't want to kill people again.
No way. Yeah, she's not doing that.
And then you end up having Tony just kind of doing nothing. Yeah, and Vision just keeps yelling that without the sun, he's going to run out of power.
Get his arm ripped off.
He gets his arm ripped off. And while all that's going on, still you end up, and I think it's supposed to be the tension of, oh no, Dr. Doom has to agree to this, and he has to get it. Oh my, what's going to happen? I'm like, it's boring. I mean, even with action, it's just boring because you don't know the characters. There isn't any sort of stakes for me. There's no sort of tension. I'm not sitting there thinking, oh my God, I think that Scarlet Witch will end up dead because of, Damascene. I think I know who's going to win. But you end up, you can suspend the disbelief, but you have to know these characters to know. You don't even know what they do.
Were there any scenes ever of them just talking amongst themselves?
What, the Blood Coven?
Yeah.
I think they hate each other. They get done and they go off on their own.
There was no character development.
No, there was none. There was no character introduction.
Most generic
I don't even know what their powers are. The cruel, it should be called
one
barbed
of them shoots
wire.
Barbed wire, yeah.
It's just like, is that your deal? You're just barbed wire? And Damascene, he got cracked apart before. And the Unusual?
And where's Bloodstorm 2?
Yeah, no, they're back somewhere else. That's his son. His son doesn't want to get in the family business. Smoke Eater. All right. Yeah. I mean, most of these, I would usually say, oh, I get it. They just wanted some cool looking characters. And then they don't even look cool. Like, they don't look cool. So you end up they're just fighting again. And we've had this fight 4 times already. And so I do believe in the 5th issue, I do believe that the Avengers might win. So in the meantime, you end up having Brielle and Dracula. They're making their way to the fight. You end up where Brielle says, I'm the only one who can stop my dad. I'm going to go do it. Come on, Dracula, let's go. Miles is with him because he's a vampire too. And they end up going. And so during this fight, where there's a lot of trash talking. There's a lot from Varney, who's like, oh, yeah, Thor, we're going to go God to God. You get Mjolnir. He gets Mjolnir. There's never a fight. Because that's when Brielle shows up. And right on cue, when Varney, as, in Blade or whatnot, says, oh, the only one who can stop me is, Bloodline, my daughter. And she's like, I'm here. And runs up and stabs him. Just stabs him and says, ha-ha. And then he says, oh, by the way, you can't do anything to me because now I'm more Varney. You're not my bloodline. You're Blade's. But this is the thing, Varney. He's the first vampire.
Yeah.
Anybody who's a vampire, including Blade, that's the bloodline. But she's like, oh no, what are we going to do? And there's not even, this happens so quickly that you can't even react to it. She goes and like, oh man, what does that mean? And then Miles just comes running and ha-ha! And ends up stabbing through Blade. And because he says, you turned me, so I'm part of your bloodline, I get to do that. And yeah, he starts spitting out, like Blade's there spitting out the darkness of Varney. I don't really know what happens with
Is that a regular sword or his stupid, electrical sword?
Yeah, I think that's the regular one. I don't think it's his, lightsaber that he has.
Yeah.
I think it's just the regular one. And he says, you turned me into a vampire. You did this to me. So that means I'm your bloodline. He's like, no, I didn't think of that stupid predicament. And then he ends up Blade just spits out a tornado of blackness Varney. I don't really know what happens to Varney. I mean, that's the big villain. And if he is dead, then all the vampires, since he's they're done. But yet, that's not the case, kind of. It's weird. And even then, you have this, be free, Daywalker. And then Blade just falls down, and you have to end up, saving him. So Iron Man comes over and says, I have half a crash cart in the suit. I don't even know what that is.
Crash cart? I don't either.
I don't know what that is. It seems like a lot of drugs.
Defibrillator thing or something? A lot of drugs.
Yeah, I guess it is. I'm thinking it's just a big bag of pills. Just shove them down his throat, see what happens. Yeah, I guess it would be like if you were at an accident. Did they have the jaws of life there? You end up, so there is
that in his suit. He doesn't have any of that stuff.
And then he says, stupid. You're going to have a nasty scar. Blade says, what's one more? I'm like, is this all we're going to get? He's
worried about scars.
Nonsense. Yeah, I'm telling you. I'm worried about what the hell happened to Varney.
Just floated off into space, into their air.
I don't know. Then at the point where if you're like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens to that Blood Coven, because at that point Moon Knight and Vision are fighting the Blood Coven, and Blood Coven's kind of taking them down. Vision doesn't have any sort of solar energy, and you end up where Moon Knight's trying to fight as well. And what happens then is they say the Blood Coven got scared and left after Varney got stabbed. They just left. So that's it. We don't see anything from them.
I'm seeing Scarlet Witch is got him frozen in some sort of pink stuff.
Okay. Varney. Yeah, I see. Even then, saying be free, Daywalker. I actually thought that was a vision. Yeah, so she's got him in the thing. But what are so they're kill him.
Yeah, just squeeze him dead, you know?
Yeah, dead.
Squish him.
Not put him in a stupid thing. So you end up with that, and then they...
So if he's still alive, in my head, everybody's still vampires.
That's the problem.
Everybody.
I don't know the rules here, because he's there in this geode. Blade, he's freed from Blade, but you end up having, at the end, like, everybody should be dying. The sun is coming through because of Dr. Doom, he's going to use
That's
his
true.
deal.
If you don't revert back as a vampire, you're a regular guy that got bitten, you're dead by the sun.
You're dead, but you're not, because then Dracula himself, the sun comes and he says, oh, the sun has lost its sting. It would appear that our people have a new dawn ahead of them. I'm like, are you a vampire still? Because you shouldn't be. But now you're...
I thought he wasn't one.
I'm telling you, he's still like maybe.
But then he's got that vampire face in one of those pictures.
I'm telling you that, like, and then he says,
Scary.
"Our people." So is it like a bunch of people like ex-vampires that they're like their club? Because then you still have Miles goes, "Oh God, our people." I'm like, don't do this to Miles.
Come on, Miles.
So, like it or not, Miles Morales, Varney's blood runs in both our veins. But now, for the first time, the children of the night need not fear the day. What does that mean? And then you end up, Miles says, but how? What aren't you telling me, Dracula? And Dracula's like, well, just as Jed McKay has done, I'm not going to tell you shit, is what he says. You haven't found out anything. There's not even somebody who even just says, hey, do you think Varney will be, safe in that crazy geode? Like, nobody's asking anything. And then you get, oh, the blood. The blood coven ran away. My next question is, who the hell is chasing them then? Why aren't we taking them down? You just let them run away. They're just gone. And then
he
they're
wants
going
to save them for later because they're such good characters.
Yeah. Really. Somebody could come back later and discuss them.
Is Dracula going to be hanging out like at the beach now, like drinking a margarita?
Probably. He's probably like, I wanted to do a lot of things here. I want to go
surfing and stuff.
I want to go to the tanning bed. I'm going to do it all. Dracula needs a tan.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be the worst. Like, later, he just shows up and he's got a tan. He's like, that's all I needed. Or he's pissed off. He gets sunburned. Yes. He's like, I never liked this. I want it back.
He would get sunburned. He would.
So what you have here as we go through, Doctor Strange, because then Dr. Doom throws the whammy and says, yeah, Stephen, I did promise that I'll give back the mantle. But I said after I saved the world, and there's a lot of work to do. So he's like, take that. So you get, what is Doctor Strange going to do? I mean, Jed McKay, does he hate the guy? Because he had him die. Then he's taking the mantle. I mean, seriously.
It's like when he says there's a lot of work to do, and you're like, you mean like 5 to 10 issues? Unless it gets canceled, maybe only 5?
And then we're going to end up having the Doctor Doom deal, because that seems to be another kind of event. You end up pretty much, I mean, to me, because there's going to be a new, and I believe it is a Red Band series that we're going to have a Blade. But
Blade, yeah.
Blade's one thing. I mean, I know that he's kick-ass. He's got some cool sunglasses. But one of the big things, he's a daywalker. That's one of the big things. I mean, they kind of call him that.
If he doesn't have that,
now
then
every vampire has it.
Yeah.
So, like, there's no night day walkers
unless
anymore.
they flip it so that the vampires can only come out during the day.
That'd be funny at night.
Something.
They're like, oh no, how are we going to go to the club? Like, that'll be a problem. Yeah, they're just normal now. They're people. I guess.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
No, this is what I'm saying. You end an event, and I'm like, there's nothing coming out of this that I'm that excited to have it.
It could have just been, it's just like 2 pages of just Dr. Doom getting the powers. That's all this is. And they're trying to say that he would, they were kind of hinting that Dr. Doom was in charge of all of this. He was responsible for this whole event.
They said it, and I don't think he was. I'm
good.
telling you, he knows the Atlantean tech. He might have done something behind the scenes to kind of get it going, but Varney and Blade, they kind of question him, and he's like, whatever. And remember, he was the ones who were able to he kept the vampires out of Latveria. That's why they went there. But he's there, and I don't know. I'm kind of sitting there. I'm like, we've had a lot of shit go down. Like, a lot of bad stuff, including this blood hunt. We have a lot of, like, maybe somebody needs to be a different, Sorcerer Supreme. Maybe we need a guy who can get the job done, and that's Dr. Doom. And he's always wanted it. He ended up, I'm telling you, too, I had a video about how this would happen. It wasn't like it was that crazy to come up with, because there's so many things that were pointing towards it, including Timeless, where they said, coming up in the next year, he's going to be this. But people were like, no way, that's bullshit, no way. And I'm like, no, it's going to be. And I'm sitting here thinking, I don't know. I think he might be pretty good at it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Yeah.
Dr. Doom is the kind of guy, like, yeah, he's a villain, right? But he is a guy who, he does have that weird honor. So he did kind of dupe Doctor Strange here. But I think getting the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme, legitimately, I don't know that he would be a bad Sorcerer Supreme. This is something that's very important to him. I think he would just be a Sorcerer Supreme.
Yeah, he loves magic.
They're going to end up doing some wacky stuff. But at this point, I'm telling you, I would not be like, oh, no, Stephen Strange, he's not this sort of... he wasn't a little bit ago. Clea was. I mean, this thing's being passed around like, who knows. I just
compare it to like what we did recently, the Secret Wars, not recently, but with Doctor Doom, that character development that he had during that with Jonathan Hickman is like, this is just pales in comparison to that. Like,
yeah, because it's just, hey, I want that. Okay, give it back. No. That's what it is.
A Doctor Doom thing needs to be very big and very impactful.
I guess that's what the big thing, but that's the big thing coming out of this. But again, what you get at the end is a lackluster ending, only to say, hey, everybody, this story, don't worry about that. It didn't really, all we wanted to do was get Dr. Doom.
There's not even an ending. You joke about this all the time. The last page is literally the title of the next book.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's all it was. And you don't need 60 issues to do that. You should.
It doesn't even have an ending.
When you read this, I said at one point that we both said this should have been a crossover between Doctor Strange, the Avengers, and some other nonsense book like Moon Knight, all the Jed McKay books. I don't even know what's that big to that. Just keep it the Avengers.
Maybe one tie-in, Blood Hunt #1.
But it was nothing.
Yeah.
So it ends. It ends where, again, a lot of people will read this and say, oh, but I thought this happened. I thought that happened. A lot of things just end up being nothing. Like I said, you have a big thing. Oh, Thor, we're going to go at it. We're going to fight Mjolnir. It's in space, and then I'm going to kill you before it gets here. And then it gets there, and there's no fight. Like, that's typical of this whole event. But this issue, there's never been a story. How do you end a non-story? Except with, hey, everybody, Doom. And that's what you get at the end. And coming in November, One World Under Doom. I'm like, oh my God, completionists that bought all these issues and spent over $300 to get this bullshit. I'd pick it. Class action suit, right? About the nonsense.
Class action lawsuit.
But what would you give this?
Listen, I'm a big fan of Pepe Larraz in general, but I think whatever direction they got from to colorist and whatever, it just looks weird. I never was really that impressed with that even part of it. I'd give this one a 4.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
I'm a 4 too.
Yeah,
it's just not good. It didn't have any weight to it. It didn't end up really telling any sort of story. Things were just thrown at us. Things were thrown. Hey, by the way, Varney. Hey, the Temple of the First Blasphemy. Hey, Atlantean Tech. Like, these were just things thrown at you. They were never explained. They never really felt like they mattered because they weren't explained. Blood Coven. All these things just disappear at the end because they weren't anything to begin with. And then it's just to set up other books. That's the worst. So I'm a 4 as well. And if we keep talking, I'm going to go down to a 3. But
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.